Hi, I'm Sam.
And I'm Max.
And I'm Shane.
And this is Movies Actually, where we give you an honest review of the movies we've meddled with so mischievously over at Maybe Movies. And this time,
we would bid you welcome to Fright Night. This is the 1985 Tom Holland directed horror movie starring Chris Sarandon, Roddy McDowall, Amanda Bess. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
William Ragsdale, who, I'm sorry, to me is always like the bastard child of Zach Galligan and Alan Ruck.
He is! Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, and sorry, not to forget as well, Stephen Jeffries as Evil Ed. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I saw this before we moved to France. So I would have seen it when I was living in Wyndham. So that would have been probably on video around 89, 90, I think.
Oh, right.
I think it's another one of those ones that fall into that category when my mum and dad used to go. We were old enough that they could go and take a holiday on their own, just leaving myself and my brother at home. And so it was straight down the video shop, then to the pizzeria, and then home for movies. And it was one of those watches.
Actually sounds good. That sounds pretty cool. So, for me, I think it was 1986, 87 when I saw it on VHS. I had an older brother who used to go and rent movies like every Friday.
Oh, right.
We'd go and rent movies. It'd always take me, which horror movie do you want to watch and all this sort of stuff, obviously, because I was too young.
Mm-hmm.
And Fright Night was one of the movies that I picked, and then we would literally go home, get fish and chips. And it was like all my brothers and my sister, because we were all obviously, well, it was just me and my brothers, we were all living together with my parents, and we would have designated jobs to do on a Friday night. So me and one of my brothers would go to the video shop, one would go to the chippy, or, we'd order pizza, or we'd get a chicken.
Yeah, of course.
And then we'd all sit there and watch movies on a Friday night. And it was just crazy. That's my first memory of Friday Night.
I think I saw it at a similar time. I might be wrong, but I think what happened was the trailers for Fright Night Part 2 started coming onto the video cassettes, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. But me being me, I've got to always watch things from the beginning, so I had to go down to the video store and find the first Fright Night and hire it from the video store. And love affair.
What is it? It's imagine an updated version of Dracula with The Boy Cried Wolf. Essentially.
Kinda.
Did you ever read a book called Cry Vampire by Terence Dicks?
No.
Really? No, I did
Terence
not.
Dicks was a writer for Doctor Who.
I know Terence Dicks very well.
Indeed, yes. I used to read a lot of the Doctor Who books that he wrote.
Yeah, and basically he branched out, he did Cry Vampire.
Oh, right.
And it's essentially a similar kind of take where there's a kid and a vampire moves in next door.
I think I remember seeing it in the bookstores, actually, but I never read it.
See, it's a really short book. It's only about 100 pages long.
Yeah, like a lot of those kids' books, yeah.
And I actually picked it up a few years ago, and, there's a sort of like a second-hand copy. And it's the way the story progresses, it's kind of similar to Fright Night, where a vampire moves in next door, one of his friends goes missing, or in the case of the book, a young girl goes missing, and the kid is adamant that the vampires, they are actually vampires.
Of course. Yeah.
And then the guy whose daughter has gone missing happens to be a Romanian bodybuilder stroke construction worker, so he has all the equipment to basically tear down the house, which is what he does, exposing the vampires and then killing them all and staking them through the heart.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I never read that. I
might have to add that to my list.
But it was. I loved that book when I was a kid, and when I read it a few years ago, I was like, "Oh, it's not as good as I remember it. It's a good book, but it's not as good as I remember."
They never are.
No.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, to me, Fright Night and Cry Vampire are very similar.
Mm-hmm. I can see. Yeah. I might have to check that one out.
Yeah, and it's like, I've got the Fright Night book as well.
I'd love to have a look at that.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I'd love to have a look at that. I never read that.
It out. But yeah, I've got a paperback version of it that I paid like 65 pence for at a charity shop.
Oh, well, I'd definitely like to take a look at that if I get a chance.
I'll have to dig it out.
Yeah.
So you can read it. See, the story in the book, for me, is also very different slightly.
Is it based on an earlier draft, is it?
I think it is based on an earlier draft.
I think a lot of those movie adaptation books were actually based on first drafts.
Yeah.
It's like the novelization of Alien has all the stuff that's in the director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all in the book,
Same
including
with-
the trying to turn into a queen thing and
It's
stuff.
the same with the novel for New Nightmare.
Ah, right.
'Cause I've got that as well.
Nice.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's another charity shop.
I think
of mine.
that's the only one I never read.
Yeah?
I had all the other novelizations at one point, but I
You
never
never
read the
read any of
new
those?
New Nightmare one.
Yeah, I've got that. I found that.
Interesting that you mentioned that, though. You mentioned, obviously, Freddy. This came in at the second highest grossing horror film in 85
Yeah.
after Freddy's Revenge.
Yeah.
Ah, right.
Which, in my opinion, Freddy's Revenge is the worst of the franchise. It's
Yeah.
just awful.
Are you sure? I mean, part 6 is pretty wobbly.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the whole concept of that and part 2. Well, yeah, actually, yeah, part 2 and part 6. And part 5 wasn't overly great either because we
It wasn't
saw it-
fantastic, but it was definitely better than part 2.
I did find out some wonderful stuff. So there's lots of kind of like character stuff with this.
Yes,
that we
sorry,
get-
yes, we're
yes,
getting
we're kind of getting
sidetracked.
it. Yes, but that was basically down to Chris Sarandon. So things like Amy looking like his lost love.
That was him.
That was him,
Oh,
to try and give the character a bit more depth, and also the reason why he's eating apples as well. There is a reason. He apparently did a lot of, in researching the role, he looked into a lot of stuff about bats and stuff, and decided that Jerry Dandridge has a high degree of fruit bat DNA in his makeup.
that's why he's always eating apples.
Yes.
Right. Okay,
Well,
I knew there was a thing about apples with him.
Yeah.
A whole bushel of apples. That's the wrong
See,
thing.
not
We've done that
only
one already.
I mean, it's all about dental care for vampires too, because I mean, obviously they've got to take care of the dentures.
Well, an apple
They
a day.
do, yes. You've got them forever. You've got to look after them.
An apple a day will keep the vampire hunters away.
Yeah.
Obviously not, but
It's all good and well. I mean, he's a couple of 100 years old or
At
whatever,
least.
but it's like dental hygiene for vampires. You know,
Oh, yeah,
you've got to keep
it's
your
got to
teeth
be
clean.
important.
Yeah.
But he's also forgetting the fact that because apples contain a certain amount of citric acid, which can erode the teeth.
yeah.
So he's obviously having to get his like fluoride in and brushing his.
Or he doesn't, because they are, as you say, they're there forever. But
Oh, you do get the impression that Jerry is the kind of vampire that definitely brushes every single night.
and flosses as well.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, I
flosses.
mean you've got to get those like little
Bits
tendrils
of-
of flesh out.
Exactly, yes.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Blood is a stainer on teeth. I don't know.
I ain't answering that.
So, I mean, I personally have had a bit of a love letter to this movie my whole life. I think it might actually beat The Lost Boys for favourite vampire movie.
It's they're about the same for me, but I think I know what you're saying.
They're incredibly close. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's a definite. I'm saying maybe. Looking at me in a funny way. Can you see that?
I can see that.
How dare you?
I'm just saying it's a close margin. I'm not saying it's definite.
I've known you for 34 years.
Yes, you
And
have.
you now tell me this. I don't know you anymore.
You're dead to me.
I mean, soundtrack, yeah, Lost Boys wins. So many things, Lost Boys wins, but they're just both really close in my heart.
It's like this one, because obviously this came before, so this one very much establishes the modern, the 80s vampire.
Oh yeah.
And obviously Lost Boys are built on that.
I mean, especially for early 80s, because you've got to remember when Fright Night came out, I mean, you also had Vamp come out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Was Vamp the same year?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah, Life Force as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Well,
We'll
I
get to
remember
that.
Life Force being
We'll get
early,
to
but
that.
I didn't remember. I thought Vamp was 86.
No, I'm pretty sure Vamp was 85.
Oh. So just right after
Yeah,
Fright Night.
literally right after. So in the mid to late 80s, there was an influx of vampire movies that came out around at that time.
That were all about the vampire in the modern age sort of thing. Yeah.
So you've got Fright Night, you've got Vamp, you've got Lost Boys, because the Lost Boys came out in 87.
Yeah, exactly.
But it didn't get a UK release until early 88. But there's so many vampire movies. I mean, you've also got to think about Subspecies as well.
They're Charles Band movies.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you had Subspecies and all kinds of vampire movies that came out.
There
Some
were a
were
lot.
good, some were good, some were really poor.
Some were really poor.
Subspecies being one of them.
I've never actually seen the Subspecies series.
I've seen a couple of them; they're not great.
I did love, and again, it was only after repeat watchings of this that, again, I find, especially that scene with Jerry when he's walking through the streets, and his look, he makes it as iconic as the kind of the classic vampire look of, like the cape and everything.
Yeah.
But the trench coat and the fact that he's gone with it in grey rather than black, and then, but still with the red scarf, so you've still got that suggestion of like the underarm, the underside of the cape that's got the red velvet or whatever, or the red silk or whatever. It is taking that iconography and placing it very clearly in the 80s, and it's just as effective.
It's an iconic movie. I mean, for its time as well. I mean, they did things, with the whole Ed transforming from wolf to man.
Yeah, that was well done, especially for the budget they had.
And bearing in mind, I was kind of like their reverse Werewolf in London.
Yes,
kind of.
It's the same process but backwards. Yeah.
Apparently, it was the first horror movie to use more than $1 million of their budget purely on effects.
Yeah,
really,
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, some of the effects, because it's all practical. I mean, practical effects.
Again, as we said before, practical effects for the win every time.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You can't capture the way that light plays on a physical object in
CGI.
CGI, you just can't do it. It's close, but it's not quite. The uncanny valley hits you in the face, and you go, "This is not real.
Yeah.
I don't believe it." Which is why, even if the physical effect might not look quite as good as the CGI, it doesn't matter because it's a real object in real space being lit by real lights. Mm-hmm. You can see that people are talking to it, touching it, interacting with it.
I mean, there are a lot of movies that come out in this day and age that they use practical effects, but they use some elements of CGI to brighten it up,
to enhance it. Yeah, that's fine. That's what it should
that's
be
all
used
good
for.
and well.
Yeah, that's
when you've got movies like I was talking earlier about the
The Thing. The Thing, yes.
Where they filmed in practical, but they added all CGI shit, for want of a better word, towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that ruined it for me.
Where this is one of those movies that does its job pretty... I mean, it's not as good as, say, the transformation in American Werewolf in London and things like that, but the physical effects are good, solid physical effects.
Personally, my personal opinion, when it comes to like practical effects, good use of practical effects, Fright Night is good, Lost Boys is good, then you've got stuff like The Thing.
Yeah, of course.
And then the daddy of all, American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, which are master classes in doing physical effects.
Sorry, but in my opinion, that transformation scene in American Werewolf in London is the best.
Well, hold on to that because we'll be getting onto that soon.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's my opinion of it.
Yeah.
Some movies are on a par, some movies are brilliant when it comes to using practical effects. Fright Night for me, I think it's fantastic practical effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with the makeup and everything, and all that kind of stuff. It just looks stunning.
And some of the stuff, I mean, they literally sort of last minute. I think it was Tom Holland decided that he wanted the big smiling grin.
Yeah.
And they had nothing for that, so the the effects guy basically had a weekend to come up with something that they could use, and they said, "We'll use it for one shot." Yeah. And then obviously it's now everywhere.
Yeah, it's
the
cover
posters,
art. Yeah,
it's cover art posters.
Absolutely, because it was such a great shot. It looked really good.
Yeah. I keep forgetting, obviously, Tom Holland, who directed this, is obviously the same director from Child's Play.
Yes, of course.
Psycho 2. Apparently, he also did the follow-up, the sequel to the remake of Fright Night.
Yes.
I don't know if he did the. I don't think he did the 2011 remake, but he did the sequel to it.
See, a lot of people.
Oh right, I heard that was terrible.
That's what I heard.
I'm going to segue onto Fright Night, the 2011 film. I really like that film. I mean, obviously it's set in Vegas, and the only comparisons to the original movies, all the characters have the same name. But I thought it was a really clever take on the Fright Night film.
Yes.
And I loved David Tennant.
I understand what you say. I don't think it quite stands up to the original, but I find it a very entertaining story. I think I'm one of those people that, like, if you're going to do it differently, don't call it The Thing.
Yeah.
So it probably shouldn't have been called Fright Night. It should have been called something else.
Yeah, well, I get that.
I don't hate the movie. Yeah. I just don't like it as a remake of Fright Night.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, obviously, you have to bear in mind that these days, a lot of Gen Zs or fucking millennials, or whatever they call them.
Whatever the word is.
Yes. Whenever they want to watch a horror movie, a lot of them are just like, oh no, that's an old movie. Let's watch, it's a new movie. And it's like, I'm the kind of person to turn around and slap them upside the head and say, watch the original.
Yep. there's a reason why the moving image lasts forever.
There is a certain attitude that things that existed before CGI must be crap, and I hate it.
I have a friend
And
who,
you're right.
until recently, I have a friend who until recently refused to watch black and white films.
Well,
And
that's
he's
the
our
thing.
age. I know.
Black and
Not-
white movies
not
are
only did-
beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, not only did I grow up watching Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars and Fright Night and all these great modern Technicolor movies, I grew up watching Dracula and the Wolfman and
the
It
original
Came from
Universal
Outer
Monsters,
Space
yeah.
and
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
the original Invaders from Mars, and they're all great, cheap as shit movies.
Oh yeah.
Cheap as shit, and their effects don't sound up to date, but that's not the point. The point is they're telling a really good story and you want to watch it, right?
See, also around about, I think it was around about 88 when they remade The Blob.
Yes, but yes, the remake of The Blob is really good, though. I was really
87,
surprised.
88, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was about 87, 88.
The remake of The Blob is cool.
I actually managed to pick it up on Blu-ray a few weeks back.
I was really jealous of it. I saw
Yeah.
you posted that.
I was actually really chuffed to pick it up as
We
well.
did forget to mention, of course, Jonathan Stark as Billy Cole. This being the only other film that I've ever seen Jonathan Stark in is House 2. Is it House 2 or House 1?
Yeah.
House 2.
Oh.
Yeah. He's the friend who turns up.
Yes, of course he is.
Yeah.
Yes, the stupid friend who keeps doing stupid things.
Yeah.
Of course. I didn't even notice, and I've got that collection at home. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, I've actually got a Region 1 collection of House.
All right.
There's the first three, I think it's the first three movies in one box set.
I've got the first two.
Oh, I've got the box set with five in.
I know there was 5, but
No, four. 4 is the number. It's not 5. It's 4.
5 is right out.
yeah,
Because there was House 2, the second story.
Yeah.
House 3,
was it a horror show?
the horror show.
I haven't seen that.
And then the fourth one is the one that technically had the original character from the first movie as one of the main characters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've got the first two.
It's not the same actor, and he kind of dies off screen at the beginning of the movie, but technically it's linked to the first story.
Okay. But yes, if you've never seen this, if you're a vampire fan, or just a fan of 80s horror, and or even just a novice and want to find out more about it, this is a good place to start. It is a fantastic movie. It is a classic vampire story.
Oh yeah, it was
Absolute
that show
classic,
about-
yes. There's no denying that
I would highly
whatsoever.
recommend people go out and watch it. And when it comes to horror movies, I suggest looking for the source material. Look for originals, not remakes. Remakes can be good. Depends on who's made them, who's in it, what the story is like. But always search out the originals.
Yeah, watch the remake, so you can hold it up as a comparison to the original. But to do that, you really need to see the original first, so that you know the themes and the ideas that the remake is trying to emulate.
Yeah.
I concur with both of what these gentlemen have said. Yeah, this is a classic movie. If you are a fan of horror in general, or vampire movies specifically, you really should watch it. Mm-hmm. So 2 thumbs up from me.
2 thumbs up from me.
And me?
Fantastic.
And there you have it, folks.
Very quickly, so before we finish, I do have to say a very huge thank you to Alex Arnold for your wonderful gift, your wonderful birthday present, which has done so much to help us with our production value. So, Alex, thank you.
Everything is so much brighter.
I know. I think we can all agree that all of this is kind of
Groovy.
And I'm actually wearing a bright t-shirt, but these lights are so bright it makes it look orange.
I know. Anyway, until next time, thanks for joining us. Take care.
As always, guys. TTFN.
Yeah, laters.